up, everybody. Good morning. Wake 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 up, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning, Drip. I am your host, Ronan Rock. Welcome to Portland's best morning show ever, and that's a fact. I just like to say that, but it is a fact. We have special guests in the building. Tori in the building.
Oh my God.
Yes.
You guys are amazing. Thanks. I'm super excited about this.
Welcome to your morning trip.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I'm very interested how this show is gonna go.
Me too.
I think that within stuff that is going on in the world as of right now, and the subject matter that you cover within your life, I think this is going to be fantastic. First of all, tell the people who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Tori Williams Douglas, and I do, I guess, anti-racism education is primarily what I do, and consulting around education.
Oh, you can also keep this mic right.
Right.
Just like
Got
a
it.
twist away.
Okay.
Okay. Good.
Sweet. Thank you.
No problem.
Appreciate the instructions. Yeah, so that's primarily what I do in my life at this point, is just kind of talk about racism and nervous systems and all the systems, I guess. So
When you mean nervous systems, what
Yeah.
are you meaning by this?
talking about nervous system responses and essentially what neuroscientists say. I think Donald Hebbs was the person who coined this term or phrase or whatever, but neurons that fire together wire together, right? So the more frequently you have certain connections between like emotions, thoughts, ideas, and imagery or anything that's coming in like through your senses, the stronger that connection becomes.
So you're more of a nurture versus nature.
I mean, they both matter, right? Like your context absolutely matters. But I also think that there's a piece of, I think a lot of, I don't know, maybe like some baby boomers, some Gen Xers probably, there's like this colorblind racism situation of like, I don't see color, right? And it's like, well, but you do. Because you have eyes,
Yes.
right? Like, and you can see culture that's like associated with like different people from different places. So that kind of angle is what I'm sort of trying to unpack for people. And it's like, that's not how it works. And because we're in like a racist system, it doesn't matter if like your parents taught you to like be a good person or like Dr. King or I treat everybody the same. Like that doesn't matter, because what's primarily being reinforced is like anti-Black and brown racism.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a thing that people don't realize, like the way that you not only bring up your children, but like at a certain point you leave your children in schools and then they are taught not only by teachers, but by also and more so other students, like how they're going to be in life. And I think it's a thing that it's hard for a lot of people to realize, like, hey, I ingrained these certain attributes into my kids. And it's like, that's great. You're with them now, like as a point of them going to school. You see them from 7 in the morning, maybe till 8:30 in the morning. And then the big part of their day, then from essentially 8:30 till 3:30, they're with everybody else in the world. They're actively teaching them how to be little human beings.
Yeah.
And then they come home to you, they play, you eat dinner, say goodnight, and the cycle
Right.
turns over again.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes people don't realize, and I'm just going to jump right into it, when we don't teach certain critical things and don't teach our children about their history, and not only in the light of like, this is what's going on in the world, but more so, this is the history of what's been going on in the world, that it turns into a thing of like, oh, word. So there's no racists. There's Dr. Martin Luther King. Let's forget about Malcolm X, because that's a little too radical for you. And someone said on a bus once upon a time, someone did an Underground Railroad. Here's this TV show called Roots. And that's a Black experience.
Sweet. We're done.
We're done.
We did it.
Out. And it's always crazy for me to think, like, when people like, that's like the plate that they're given. And I'm like, all right, so we're not going to talk about the film history of how we've shown Black people forever, and now we're only finally starting to get different things. It's like, oh, we're not going to talk about the music industry and how like hip hop, when its first birth, was talking about the streets in the sense of the people that were being drug dealed to, and those people talking about the strifes and living in this culture and living through these pathways and yada yada yada. To then all of a sudden the music industry being like, yo, this is radicalizing people. Let's stop this. We're only going to do gangster rap. That's the only thing we're going to play on the radio. But at the same time, we need to ban and abolish this.
Yeah. I think that there's so many conflicting things going on in all of these spaces. Absolutely. And yeah, it's my whole thing, I guess, is that, you know, I'm like, we have to know better in order to do better, right? So
we have to know.
You have to know, right? You have to know something.
Yeah.
And so, right, unpacking all of that stuff and sort of laying it out for people to see it, that it's like, okay, maybe you're super offended by the fact that there's like a black elf in Lord of the Rings or whatever. But
Black people didn't exist in, what was it, Elendor or whatever they call it. I'm like, yeah. So, word, in this imaginary universe that does not really exist, there's not allowed to be any dark-skinned people. No, there is. They're called orcs. I'm like, all right, so word, the only villains in this show are the only things that have dark skin. Yes, and they look like monsters and apes. Yes. You don't see a problem with this? No. Cool.
just being
Thanks.
historically accurate.
It's always kills me when they do that kind of stuff, and I'm just like, so when we look at history, like, for the most part, any point when there's a war or there's a time to go to battle or something of that nature, there's always at some point the darker skinned individuals that come in and save the day. And I look at like the Tuskegee Airmen. I look at the different groups through like our ancient history of it being like, oh, why do we always make them so light skinned and white and or X, Y, and Z? And then it's like, hold up a second. Tuskegee Airmen never lost a bomber. Like literally the whole entire war would have been a different thing. Oh, word. Like when we had when we were fighting the Nazis, there was a whole entire group of black individuals that they were trying to brainwash, being like, hey, yo, I know that you want to come over here because the Americans are telling you to come and fight us Nazis and Germans and stuff. Actually, don't do that. We're on your side. They're trying to enslave you. It's like, nah, we got this. We're going to be very good at this, and we're going to handle business. It's like, I guess so. It just always blows my mind when I think of like not only how much we've done for this country, but how much we've helped others within fighting their own battles, and then how they make us look inept, like clueless, or we weren't there for it, or we weren't a part of that history.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like even inventing stuff for the wars and everything else. And it's like wars are only one aspect of it, but then we're looked at as individuals that aren't patriots within the sense of being like, we understand that there's something wrong in the world over here, and then we have to fight. But then, you know, we also have Ali, that historically the Vietnam War, they ain't never done nothing to me. Why am I going over getting drafted to go fight them?
Yeah.
Y'all ain't even protecting me in my own country.
Yep.
And it's just beautiful. I just really, I'm in what I know we're gonna get into, just the thoughts that we aren't truly American citizens. We no longer can be African. We are displaced, but yet whenever it's time for us to serve, we're always the ones that get drafted. And then and even when they didn't want to draft us, like in the Civil War and everything else, like we still have to go in there and handle business. And it's just, I don't know, just the sacrificing of lives.
Yeah.
In that context, it's just really weird to me. And it's like, we don't want to teach racial history.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't don't understand so many aspects of this. It's very much, I feel like it's very much we're just going to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, right? Because it was like a couple years ago, it's like, well, you can't have safe spaces, you can't have trigger warnings because you're doing a disservice to you're raising all of these little snowflake babies and they're not going to be able to manage in the real world. And now it's like, oh, we can't teach the civil rights movement because like white kids might feel bad. And I'm like, how do you get it both ways? Like, that's what's so frustrating to me. This is like, okay, you literally get to have it both ways and just sort of carve out like your own little protections for your own little worldview. And then everybody else has to live with that. And that's the part that I'm just like, okay, I'm at least going to point this out so that people who are capable of thinking for themselves can go like, oh yeah, that's messed up.
Yeah.
Like maybe like pick a side. Like which one is it?
I think you nailed the. What was it? Nailed the hit the nail on the head. Sorry, it's too early for me. When I think of safe spaces, and traditionally, like I think historically, white people invented safe spaces
For themselves.
Yes, and they excluded us out. And try to make these, these little, it's the suburbs. It's like, leave all the craziness and X, Y, and Z in the city. We're going to live on the outskirts of it. We don't have to worry about violence or anything else like that because that's the mobsters and da-da-da-da-da and gangs. And we're going to say that those are, people that look like this while they go live out in the hills.
Yeah.
But those same people that, usually portray those crimes, like whoever the boss of it is the person that lives out in the burbs that's controlling stuff.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
I find it, and please tell me how you feel about this. We now live in a world where we keep segregating ourselves. And I feel like we do it to the detriment and to the benefit of us in the sense of as people of color, as different minority groups, we keep segregating ourselves because we're afraid. We're afraid of the erasure of us because it's like, and I don't know the proper way to say this, but I'm going to say it the best way I can. It becomes that thing of being like, you don't have the same values and the same stuff that I care about.
Right.
Or I want my race or my people or whatever else not to get erased from this history. But then at the same time, we're like, hey, we got to include these people, include these groups. All these things do matter. And I don't know the right way to go about it. I don't know the right way to live in a society like that, where we're like, it'd be beautiful for us to have an all-black school because then we won't be, X, Y, and Z won't be done to us. But at the same time, that's segregating ourselves from the rest of.
Right, yeah. And I think some of it is like, clearly most of it has been done to us. Like you were talking about, like white people created safe spaces for themselves. I mean, like Oregon was literally founded as like a white
red
safe
line
space,
state.
So, and like that's just facts. And I think that there's definitely a tension there of like, how do we not completely pull away, but also like we can recognize like what whiteness as a construct has done to white people has erased their cultures. It's just eliminated their own histories and cultures, and all of this stuff just gets disappeared because you have to give it up in order to be white, in order to earn whiteness. You have to like, and to be under that umbrella, you have to give up most, if not all, of your ethnic culture, your like people's history. And so, you know, and we see that and we're just like, yeah, no, I'm not interested in any of that. You know, like I'm not out here like trying to give up like part of who I am so that you'll like maybe one day treat me like a person. Like that's not a real trade-off. And when we're in this kind of tension of, you know, it's like segregation, like white people self-segregate all the time. They always have. Like it's very strange. Like they're very strange creatures. And just like the way
white people are strange. That can be put on a shirt. Hell yes. That's a bar right there.
And again, it's like it comes back to that, like we want it both ways, right? Like we want people here who are going to do our work for us because we're like we're just like little delicate flowers and we can't be out in the fields and whatever. And also like stay away from, you can't be anywhere near us. Like don't come near our children. Like
no. Take care of our children because you're cheap manual labor.
I meant like don't date our children.
Yes. No, but you're right in both hands. Like it's like, word, you can be the person to take care of our children. Please do not bring your children over with our children and then have them be like, oh, you mean little Antoine or young Jesus is hanging out with my child all day while you're rendering care to my children and exposing them to, don't you dare feed them your ethnic food. Jimmy likes his crust cut at a certain amount, and he likes it in triangles, not squares, not the halves. You bring that in my house. I love that. I love that, like we as a people of minority descent have had this like historical, we got to take care of you. When and this goes back to the Moors and different groups, when we were the people that not only taught white people, brought education to white people and the Europeans, but then also at that same injunction, like we are the threat. And somehow we've always been the threat, even though we've been historically, brown people have been closer to nature, had a better understanding of living hand in hand with the land, trying to figure things out in that way, finding technologies that make it so we can be one with nature. But we have white people that are constantly like, hey, yo, fuck your waterways. We got to bring this oil pipeline. Yeah. Hey, we understand that there's a new fuel source that we could be using, but guess what? Ford and General Motors and all these other companies need to still exist, white owned. Hey, we're going to make sure to put our factories in Detroit, and then we're going to sit up here and destroy all the infrastructure because we no longer want to be there. We're going to poison the water, not fix it for over 10 years, and then come back to you and be like, guess what? White people in Portland want to buy blocks. They want to buy all the buildings, buy all the neighborhoods. Now that all the white people have moved out. Guess what? Time for y'all niggas to get out of here. Don't try to make a black utopia in Detroit. No. Don't do that. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a great point, that there's a lot of kind of internal conflict in the ways that there's no outer limit to, like, I mean, if we're talking about whiteness and the world and like living within the means that our planet has, which again, like white people are just like, oh, I don't have to pay attention to that. Like,
who cares about the rainforest? We can plant more trees.
Right. Well, it's like, okay, you could ostensibly do that. Why aren't you doing that?
But that's the thing. Oh man, that's one of my favorite things. And this is kind of off subject, but them now, the whole entire corn industry is really weird. Everything's made of corn. And now they've bought out the seeds. Like they genetically altered corn.
Right.
Now they own those as pieces of property.
Yeah.
And they sell that corn to farmers. Farmers can't use the seeds that naturally come from the corn. They have to rebuy every year. If they're found to have bought or they're found to have used the seeds from the corn that have naturally fall off or whatever else, they can be sued. And I'm just like, how?
Yeah.
How did we get to this point? Like, farming was like the thing that made this country, and now it's a thing. Not only do we make farmers and blue collar workers look like pieces of shit, low bottom class, when I'm like, most of those people usually either own their own companies or they make enough within there to be self-sufficient. And it's always now weird to me. I'm like, perfect example. Gender excluded. If you were come up to by a person that was just like, hey, yo, I'm really into you, like you, seem amazing. And always at one of those points you come down to like what they do for a living. It's like, oh, I'm a plumber. And it's like most people are like,
Yeah.
You're not a doctor, you're not a lawyer, you're
Right.
not X, Y, and Z.
You're not an influencer.
You're not an influencer, but it's like, yo, but I own my own plumbing company. Like I
Right.
got a house, I got a good job, like
Yeah.
I'm taken care of. It's like, oh, I'm a contract worker. I own my own
Yeah.
construction company. Oh, like, I do roofing. I any of those manual labor jobs or one of those skilled jobs where you have to like, I'm always amazed at people that think that blue collar workers are dumb. And I'm like, you know how much math they have to do on a daily basis?
Yeah.
I had to help my mom out at her house with plumbing, and I felt like an idiot. I felt like an idiot when they were just like, oh, no. See, you need a 1/4 inch, not an 1/8 inch. And you're not. And they kept going through the math. And I'm like, bruh, I brought the pipe. Here it is. What size do I need?
Yeah.
Slow it down for me.
Yeah.
And we look at these people like they're idiots. That they're less than like, yo, a farmer that owns acres, which it rarely happens now because so many of the properties are now rented for them
Right.
to just sit up here and manage.
Yeah.
But someone that owns acres of land and then takes care of X, Y, and Z animals that feed people across the country, you would give more credit to an exec that works
Yeah.
at Tyson Farms
Right.
than the person that actually provides them with the chicken for Tyson.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because like those are the important people. And I love that we're talking about this because this has been an idea that I have been stuck on for a really long time. At one point I got really mad about all of these like carbon credit things that you can buy so you can like offset your carbon footprint when you're like on a flight or whatever. And I'm like, this is so fake, you guys. Like this is such a grift. And so I'm like doing research on it, and then I'm like researching all of these, the way that they replant forests, right? It's all like one tree. And so I'm like poking around. I mean, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. Like I've lived here my entire life and I absolutely love it. And I don't know, I'm a nerd. So I'm like trying to research all of this stuff about
were
like.
you born out here?
Yeah, I was born in Portland. And so I'm trying to like research all this stuff about how we're replanting these forests and discovering like, oh yeah, I was right. This doesn't even count. Like you clear cutting this and then replanting one tree, like that doesn't count as like a carbon offset. And I was so struck by this one idea that I read, this scientist kind of articulated, that like these monoculture forests aren't actually forests, they're green deserts.
Yep.
And I was like, wait a second, this is so fascinating to me because I'm like, this is what whiteness does. I'm like, whiteness is monoculture. That is the point, is that everything is exactly the same. Everything is uniform. Everything comes out of the factory like this, right?
Yep.
And there's no variation, there's no deviation, and that's what they want. But that's not healthy. And we know that is not healthy. And we know that like you're going to have a much stronger and healthier like ecosystem, right? If there is a lot of diversity because all of these plants rely on one another, but this is like what whiteness does not want, right? It's the hyper individualism. I'm not going to rely on anybody ever. I don't care if we burn the planet down in the process. Like, I will not rely on people. I will not be dependent on other people. And it's just like, guys, we literally evolved in the forest relying on one another, right? This is why we are all terrified of rejection. It's because if you were rejected from your crew back then, it was like you that was a death sentence. Yeah. Right? It was the original like fuck around and find out. Like, that is not, it's like you didn't mess with that. You did not mess with that, right? Because there
what
was
did you
like,
say to Brenda? Oh, you out. You out. Brenda. Nah, I mean, that is true. I actually heard something recently. I watched have you heard of Brilliant Idiots?
No.
All right, so Brilliant Idiots. It's Charlemagne the God and this dude named Andrew Schultz. So they're very problematic with what they talk about. But they were talking about this situation of race and how we are identified as African American and how some people have a problem with that and like what we should be titled and why. And the white host Andrew Schultz eventually got to the point of being like he was like, yo, I think it would be better if white people are identified with the "and" in the sense of being like, white people are all lumped in as just Americans. White people should be American and Italian, American Irish, American Australian, whatever. And he's like, all the other cultures should just be broken down into being like, they're African or they're Hispanic or they're whatever. It doesn't need to be combined within the American thing. And they're going back and forth. And I just got to this point of being like, you know what? It is extremely weird that white people, wherever they are the group of that nation. It's if you're in Europe, you're not designating the individual whiteness unless it becomes to a certain point of then what your passport says, in the sense of being like, oh, you haven't been in Europe for X amount of time, you are Swedish, but you just so happen to be over here. And I just love the idea is like, if you're there for a long enough time and you're white, you're just that. Your people are of that. But of any other race, no matter what, it's like, you got what in you? Got a little bit of something in you? Oh, you that.
Yeah.
You African American. It's like, I think that people forget how much language plays a role, not in only how you identify, but just like words literally matter. Like, words can literally affect you to your physical being.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I think about that within us, you know, as we're called, Black people in America are called the Lost Tribe. And we once again, how we got into this, how we don't have our history.
Right.
But at the same time, we can't predict a future for ourselves. Like, we can't make an inline road of being like, yo, we tried to make Black Wall Street. Can't do that.
Yep.
We try to integrate ourselves and indoctrinate ourselves with what it is to be American, what it is to be this culture. We're going to be one of you now. We're going to fight and battle with you to make sure that this land's protected. But we're still not safe, and we still don't know what's going to happen to us in the next 50 years.
Yeah.
And we can't go back home to be a part of our people, because you also took over that.
Right.
Made apartheids, tried to erase us. Yo, do you know about eugenics?
Yes.
Please
Well,
break down eugenics for people. I really didn't know about this until recently.
Okay.
And it blew my mind.
Okay. Are we talking about, so you want to talk about like in the States and like in Western Europe, like how eugenics played out? Is that what we're...
Just give us like a basic understanding of what eugenics is.
Okay.
Just basic.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, you're putting me on the spot, man. Yeah. So essentially eugenics is the idea of like, we are going nicely get rid of like essentially unwanted either populations or types of people, right? So people with disabilities and people with chronic illnesses were very frequently like the targets originally, along with, when we're talking about the US, like people of color, right? So there were all of these efforts in the US to, like, there were a lot of forced sterilizations of Black and Puerto Rican women, especially. I know Indigenous women were also like caught up in that effort. And it was about controlling populations so that like white people with power got to say, like, these are the people that actually matter. And so these are like the lines that we're going to continue to like allow people to have. And we want to, the idea was, they thought at least, like, we want to like move humanity up to the next step in evolution by like purging ourselves of all of the everything that's not us.
Yeah. And it became like a controversial thing because, and I'm trying to make sure I remember this correctly, that they were like, the first forms of birth control were a part of eugenics. And it was within Latin communities, they would sit up here and introduce some of these, I think the first version of the pill, and that ended up being the thing that also ended up with sterilization, because they weren't, they're just like, hey, we got this thing.
Yeah.
Let's give it to all these women that we don't want to have children anymore. We don't know the repercussions of what this is going to be.
Right.
I love that they did that, but now they're the same people that are being like, oh, no, you have to have your babies. Because we need, we forgot who's going to tend the fields, who's going to watch our kids, who's going to work these manual labor jobs that we don't want anymore.
Yeah.
Can't be white people.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct. And there's so much history there, but you're absolutely right that, and my argument has been that it's not even like who's going to tend the fields, who's going to do these jobs that we want. It's like, we get tax dollars from the government if we can put more bodies in prison, right? So there's this perverse incentive the entire way down, right? And I think that, and this doesn't necessarily play out globally, so I understand that, but I'm really fascinated by the idea that basically about 18 years after abortion was made legal in the States, which I guess it's not anymore, there was like this huge decrease in crime. Like crime rates dropped because people could if you can control how many children you have, then you can invest in those children better. And the problem with eugenics is it's people with power looking down at the population and saying, okay, we want more of them and like fewer of them. And it's like people will make their own decisions if they have access to control their own like reproductive health and how many children they want. Like people are going to make decisions that are better for them. And usually for most people, for the overwhelming majority of people, that's not having 7, 8, 9 kids, right? For the overwhelming majority of people, it's having 1, 2, 3 kids.
And it's weird because like our history of, of having so many kids was because we were farmers. We needed to have, when you have acres and acres of land to take care of, you can't afford to have these workers come and work it. You have large families.
Right.
And within that, we used to also, us naturally as people stayed in these communities for long periods of time. So it wasn't like, hey, you're 18, get out of your parents' house now.
Right, yeah.
You would be there. You're the next generation would live on that land, find a spot, and it would be more of a communal gathering of people to be able to take care of. And it's when you don't educate people or you don't allow people to educate themselves to learn new ways to live, then we have that many children. And it became that thing of them being like, how they always portray us. It's like, these kids are having these babies and they're having so many of them and all this stuff. And it's like, word, you don't let us do anything besides sit on the street and fuck.
Right.
And you make us these stereotypes, and I'm going to let you better explain this. I've recently heard that Black women are the number one single population, unmarried, and I think about how they show us in media, how they describe us, how they put us out, and just like once again showing let me say this correctly, how they show us in the media, from whether it's the TikToks or we're bad mothers or X, Y, and Z. But then at the same time make Black women look desperate. And I don't know the correct way to explain it, but we have shows like Insecure that show so many different levels of the Black woman's experience. But at the same time, it focuses on being like, hey, them trying to figure out a relationship and getting to the point to having kids. And it's weird to me how we can blame them, we can blame Black mothers for everything within the Black family, but at the same time use their image and I'm not finding the right way to say it. I'm not saying this clearly enough. And how do we sit up here and say strong Black women and then demonize them for everything else? Like whether it's the broken family because there isn't a man there, whatever else. It's very. Do you get where I'm trying to go? I'm. It's so hard now to speak about Black women, and I don't know if it's a sense of me being like a single raised or a Black child raised in a single family, and I saw all the stuff they went through. I just feel like there's an enormous amount of weight that's put on Black women that they either need to wait X, Y, and Z amount of time before they start a family. But they also need to do X, Y, and Z to make sure Black men are taken care of, whether it's being like how they raise us or when they have a partner, how they're supposed to deal with them. And at the end of it, I see how they get portrayed. I'm like, how are they able to survive? How are they able to navigate all these stereotypes that they have to deal with? Because it's always Black men are getting killed by cops and X, Y, and Z.
Right.
How do they deal? Like honestly, I don't know how to explain it. I'm not explaining it well, but how do they deal?
I think that.
What up?
Continue. I'll mention it in a second.
Okay. So yeah, I think that this is another, like, it's another situation where we are set up to like, you can't win. And that's the point, right? It's like, well, we don't want you to win, so we will give you no options for winning. And I think that the one thing, like the one, I guess, like silver lining in the everything that you have defined in terms of like these stereotypes and just sort of exclusion and rejection and dismissal just out of hand, right? I think that the one thing that is probably like important to point out also is that because Black women have this impact of like all of these external forces, right? So we're contending with everybody at every level, and like we've been coded to make sure that everybody else is taken care of, and like not us, but everybody else is like, you know, the white people, the white people's kids, the black people, like our own kids, and like every, it's just there's no end to the list of like people we're supposed to be taking care of before we can take care of ourselves. But like I will say that the one thing that I do appreciate is that I can see that like Black women see through that, right? That they're not falling for that, like, oh, you just have to take care of everybody and like be sad and quiet and sit by yourself and like don't do anything because anything that you do is offensive to us, right? Because again, it's like you can't win because we don't want you to. I think Black women pretty consistently like see through that's a narrative that we've just sort of been handed, and it's like, yeah, no, I don't have to take this, right? Like, you can say all of these things about me, and I think that it's very much the situation of like having bullies at school. It's like there is a certain point where you're gonna go, okay, I like this is something that I'm gonna be in this space. It sucks. I don't maybe even necessarily want to be here, but I'm gonna do what I got to do to get through this. Because that's the choice that I have, right? There's not, at the end of the day, it's not like, okay, well, you just get to not come to school now because like somebody's treating you crummy, right? That's not really an option. So there's very much this like, I think, resilience that we shouldn't have to get through circumstances that should just be normal, right? Like we shouldn't actively have to be dealing with all kinds of antagonism and dismissal and exclusion and discrimination. But we are, and we do, and that's just like, okay, well, this is kind of, it's like the cards you were dealt in a way. But at the same time, I think that there's a piece of like, I really appreciate the sort of I guess subversive nature of like I'm going to undermine the system that benefits like people at the top to like make sure that more benefits are coming to people at the bottom, right? Like I'm like, if I have the key card, like I'm holding the door open so that other people can come in, right? And I think that at least for me and what I've seen and like what I've observed in my friends and like people that I love is there's very much this like resilience that we should not have to have, but we do because that's the only option that we're given. And yeah, it's like you make the best of it.
All right, I'm going to say something, and forgive me for the terminology I'm going to use to describe it.
Okay.
All right. I feel like, especially in white culture, they have made a point, whether it's like the Vikings or the Romans or whatever group it was, that the highest commodity at the end of the day were the women. And in Black culture and Black society, they have tried to devalue that commodity within our culture, that it's been pushed in so many different ways to make Black women devalued and to make them less than. That I feel like that is, if we truly looked at the starting point of like the disparity in the Black culture, that might be the starting point. Is the devaluing and the pressure that is put upon Black women.
It's a really good point. It's a really good observation. I think that because again, like the way that I orient people towards anti-racism, towards racial justice is from this nervous system perspective of like, how are we being coded, right? And I mean, I think that to me, the most acute example is the movie Jaws and how like people.
Oh, I'm waiting for this one.
Yeah, no. This is like, it's incredible to me, right? Because that movie changed the way that Americans viewed sharks, like fundamentally changed the way that Americans view sharks. And there are people who have never gone in the ocean who are deathly afraid of sharks. It's like you've never even seen one, right?
Yes.
But culturally, like this fear just sort of like exploded into like public consciousness, whereas before, I mean, there was like for 100 years in this country, people weren't even sure that sharks could eat a person. Like they didn't even, because they so rarely attack people that it just wasn't even common knowledge, right? There was in the early 1900s, there was this radio personality, I believe in Chicago, who basically was like, if you can prove that you were bitten by a shark, like come in here with a scar, I will give you $10,000. Like nobody ever took him up on it, right? Because they were just like, no, that's just not really how sharks behave. But Jaws like completely changed that for everybody. And so we have all these people who have this irrational, you're more likely to be killed by a bee sting than a shark, right? Yeah. But we have all these people who have this really irrational fear of sharks because of this cultural moment, because we were coded into it. Like this, and this is stuff you pick up on even if you've never seen that movie, right? And I think that the cultural coding of being antagonistic towards Black women is very similar. That like came from, I think, outside, right? That came from whiteness. But because we're surrounded by it, you internalize it. That's just how nervous systems work. That's how we pick up our biases. I
think that like maybe included into the thing of being like strong Black women into combative Black women. That it's like, remember Sharkeisha?
Who?
Sharkeisha?
No.
All right, Sharkeisha, there was like this viral video of this Black girl like beating on another girl.
Oh, okay.
And it was and I think that so much of that imagery and then the saying of strong Black women leads to the idea of combative Black women, and that they are so wild and unkept and X, Y, and Z that it puts this narrative on it that makes it.
I think this comes back to exactly what I was saying, though, right? Is that we're in a context where violence is strength. We like conflate those things. That there's no form of strength that doesn't end in violence if you are not getting what you want. And I think that, again, this is just like the cultural coding that we are handed. And so we start running these scripts and we're not even realizing it, right? And so taking the time to kind of back up, go, okay, where am I getting this idea that I have floating around in my head from wherever, right? And I mean, I think that we see this playing out also, I mean, it's like talking about sharks and like completely unnecessary demonization, right? Like this is it's exactly the same way that this country treats Black men, is like this unnecessary demonization that we just manufactured like out of nowhere, right? And it's been going on for so long that now people are like, well, it's just science, it's just facts, right? When we are in this like cultural whatever, when we're in culture, like we're being impacted by it, we're being impacted by those narratives, and if we're not doing the work to like recognize and name and unpack that stuff consistently, like that's the script that we're going to run.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can now nail on the head. It's the loss of the femininity of Black women, that we are shown so many other different aspects of them besides that, and it's the only ones that we get is the overweight big mamas shown within the feminine aspect of Black women. And I'll at least stop my portion of the conversation with this. It's weird to me how we are literally, Black women are literally the creators of life in this world, period. For all the weird ass people that are going to be like, well, we came from these different places and everything else. White people, you might be aliens that came to Earth. This shit came from a Black woman. Hands down, no questions asked, period. Like, I don't know where the fuck y'all came from. Y'all might be from Jupiter or Venus, whatever that men from Mars bullshit. Y'all might did that shit. Black woman from Earth. Hands down, no questions asked. But how Black women have lost and they haven't lost it, how the media portrays it is the same way that I feel like now Latin women are starting to be represented as. There's still some of the matriarchy things that are shown through media, right, but it's becoming so so close to in the same ways that black women are portrayed that I'm just like, how do they get away with this? How do they get away with like this long-standing fucking narrative that Cleopatra was white? that whenever we have women shown in like I even noticed this in like Wakanda Forever and all the recent movies and everything else, is that's like black women are rocked out. They're looked at as warriors. And it's the softness that can be there isn't shown.
Right.
And I don't mean to harp on this to be like, yo, black women need to be da 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 da.
Right.
It's just weird to me. And I've just seen it so much lately that I'm just like, is no one else noticing this? Like how long it's taken to get to this point that like this is the only way that they're represented. Like I just have a hard time with it because I think that when I see that, I can say it and I can nail it on the head and I can be done with this. There's no more fucking Lauryn Hills in the world.
Yeah.
And as much as I love the Megans, the Nickis, the City Girls, the SZAs and X1, I'm like, where the fuck is the next Queen Latifah? Where the fuck is the next Lauryn Hill? Why aren't these things being showcased of the diaspora of us? Like, as much as I love the strong and impactful and everything else, show me the conscious. Show me the next Maya Angelou. Show me these other sides of our nature of these women. Like, quit putting these. Sorry. God dang.
Just letting you know, there is some comments in the chat.
Okay. I'll leave it at this. I'm scared for our black women.
Yeah.
I'm scared for them because we can't have black people without black women.
Yeah.
And I'm just don't know how to do right by them. And I'll say this as a person that is in a mixed race relationship. I'm more scared by it now because I was a person that I was definitely like, I'm going to love who I love. I'm not going to look at them not only by skin color or race or gender or anything else. I'm just going to love who I'm going to love, whoever that may be. And I now understand the mindset, and I said this earlier, of why we try to segregate ourselves to keep our people going. So I don't know. Tell me how you feel. Why? Actually, hold on. Let's look. Someone blew up the comments.
Okay.
The heat today. Wait. Yo, Jesus, handle these for me.
So when he's talking about the what up wings, or Steven, when you guys were talking about the carbon footprint, he brought up the green curtain for the highways. It happens to be like they plant a ton of forestry around the highway so people don't get depressed about how much has been logged 200 meters away. Wow, that's hella funny. And then he was talking about, just accordingly to what you were saying, he just learned about Calafia. I think there's like a goddess, the goddess of California, in which California, the state, is named after a black warrior goddess, which I didn't know about.
You're fucking kidding me, right?
I'll fact check it.
California is named after a black goddess? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, it's a thing.
Wow. Thank you, Steven. That is hilarious. Well, I only say that in the sense of being also the city of angels. I just find like there's a joke in there somewhere that someone else impact. Steven, hit us with it when you figure it out. There's something there. It's a city of angels, but it's only because of a black goddess. Yeah. Anyways, how are you feeling about the racial theory, about the leading charge within Florida that's somehow now spreading around the country of being like, nah, we don't need this narrative.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that they clearly see it as a threat, right? To empathy building, which you can't have. Like, you can't simultaneously have people who care for one another, like sincerely, like care for other people's humanity, even if I don't know you, right? I think that is at least incongruent, if not just like completely antithetical to capitalism. Honestly, it's like you can't care for other people. Like that's the point. Is it set up so that you can only care for yourself?
Yeah.
Right? I got mine. Like that's it. And or if you're successful, you can care for the people that you've decided are worthy of care. There's also that.
Do you I gotta ask this.
Okay.
Within the same stuff that we're just talking about, isn't it weird that they'll be like, no racial theory, but you'll go to any person that's like white and like extremely rich, especially they from old money. They have like, you always see it in movies and stuff, like the pictures of their ancestors and a library and telling all this deep, long history. If you're rich and white, like it is always or damn near always a thing of being like, look at where we came from to where we're at within shit. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they can tell that story, and that's like a narrative that they all hold on so tightly to. But the fact that we can't just give general fucking knowledge of our people, not even like break it down to being like, hey, this is what happened in our state, which I really feel like is a thing that should happen. It should be broken down to not only when you do your civil rights sector of history for kids, that then it's like, all right, this is the state that you lived in, what they fucking did.
Yeah.
Here's the names of the families that did this shit. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, Billy, you a Smith? Oh, you didn't know what the Smiths did? Oh, let's tell them about the Smiths. Like, I think that might be one of the reasons why they try not to decorate, or not decorate, sorry, that's the wrong word. That's one of the reasons why they don't want to do racial theory, is because I think then people might find out information about families that are currently still living. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that that's true. I mean, I think that it is, it's a threat towards empathy, right? Because it's not just, and it's not, I mean, to me, I would say, like, I don't even think that you have to use that language of like racial theory. Like, let's just teach history and be honest about it.
Full on history.
Like, just be honest about what happened. But they can't do that. And they've never been able to do that, right? And that at least we know. It's like, there's a narrative because America is an idea, right? And that's all it is. And if people start falling off.
Say a bad idea.
Well, I mean, most ideas are.
No, there's some good ideas, but I mean, this is all right. The long-lived history of America, that, going back to America was discovered, and it's like, it was never fucking discovered. It was always here, motherfucker. First point, and then going like, black people were brought here by white slave owners. Like, nah, niggas were here before then. I don't know if you knew this, but we also built ships and did shit on our own. Like, I think that when I say that America is a bad idea, is that the white colonizing idea, and then my favorite part that people always forget. Y'all mothers were basically enslaved by Europe. Y'all came here for religious freedoms. And y'all had the Boston Tea Party, all this other shit happened, how the fuck did you forget that you had slave masters? When you look at the Queen of fucking England, you should be thinking like, damn, there's Massa. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you forget that history so fucking quick and be like, the, you know, the ideas of America and George Washington and all these presidents. I'm like, you know that most of these motherfuckers flip-flop. Mm-hmm. That the Republicans freed the slaves and then that became the Democratic Party because of money and other shit. They flip-flop. All these motherfuckers have been bad. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, we are doomed to repeat this fucked up history of the world. And once again, I hope white people are aliens. Because I hope E.T. comes back and gets their ass. I hope E.T. comes and takes you home. Because where the fuck y'all came from, y'all weird as hell. It's just, I don't, you get what I'm saying? Like, I don't get how they come up with these lies, especially now.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, it's like that's whiteness as a construct is a lie. Like, it's an idea that we came up with that it's like, okay, well, I deserve power, right? Like, here's the racial hierarchy. I'm at the top. I deserve power. And yeah, it's very easy to sort of forget, like, oh, we were oppressed back in the day. Like, that's why we came here. But it's just, it turns around so quickly, right? It's like the minute you've decided, like, oh, I deserve power over others, then like everything goes out the window. Like, there's no more moral framework. It's like, I was given power by God. So however I use it is fine. God would not have given me power if I wasn't allowed to use it however I wanted. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that stuff like that, it's like, I love that because it's really like the idea, like, Jesus was executed by like a bunch of cops for not doing anything, right? Like, he didn't do anything.
Damn.
But like, we got like little Swedish Jesus over here who's just like all cute and passive and whatever, and it's like, okay.
I never even thought of it that way until you said that.
It was a roadside execution. Like, it was a spontaneous roadside execution. Like, that is, and so I'm just like, yeah, white people making Jesus white is hysterical.
It's truly amazing. Even like, I still love the fact that there's so many people that don't realize that the Bible wasn't written by Jesus
Or white people.
I'm just like, yo, like, there's so many different versions of it, and you guys still think this motherfucker was written by Jesus. Like, his boys didn't even write it. Like, there was groups of, like, just go watch the Da Vinci Code, motherfucker. You got the most Tom Hanks of Tom Hanks motherfucking movies, and you guys still don't understand your own fucking religion that y'all motherfuckers made up. Like, and the thing that still kills me about it is that, you know, they had the Salem witch trials and all that stuff. You stole your own religion from other fucking white people. You're just like, oh, paganism and the winter harvest and the spring harvest, and these are the things that we're going to make our religion about. It's really weird that all fucking religions' holidays are in December and January, all in the same time of fucking year. Like, I feel like when I see this shit, and it's like I hear from like comedians and like different storytellers of different races and different backgrounds, but I'm always just like, yeah, how the fuck didn't they realize this? How isn't the calling out of white people better understood? Like, I'm like, your religion is fucked up.
Yeah.
All of them. And they were all stolen.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's true. And to me, it's like, it's about, there's like this huge piece of erasure, but there's also like this ostensibly moral justification for the accumulation of power and like enforcing or protecting that power, however, like by any means necessary. Right. And I think that these are ideas that like whiteness as a construct is founded upon, right? Like those are the foundational ideas within the construct of whiteness. And so, yeah, it's like, it's designed for you to forget. Like that is the point, right? America is designed for you to forget all of the fucked up history, because then the idea falls apart, right? It's like, oh, we didn't apply this ever. Like all of this was just like you gaslighting us. It's like all men are created equal, and by all men I mean like the dudes who own land, who weren't indentured servants when they came over here or like fleeing religious persecution. It's like all billionaires are created equal. Like I guess that's
trickle down economics.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah. Like wait,
the lies that are told by white men to subjugate the rest of the world is fucking amazing. Like no, you don't understand. It's like, no, motherfucker, it's right in front of me. I completely understand. It's like, here, let me get my one token nigga to come out here. Let me get my Candace Owens to come out here and explain it to you. Which I'm still pissed off that Candace Owens killed fucking Kanye West. I truly, like, this is my conspiracy theory. Okay. Candace Owens killed Kanye West, and now we sit up here and have the reverse vitiligo. Did you ever see fucking Boondocks?
Yeah.
The TV show?
Yeah.
All right. Boondocks, they have Uncle Ruckus. Yeah. I feel like they made an Uncle Ruckus of Kanye West, and that's now what we've been dealing with since, I would say, Dark Twisted Fantasy. We've been dealing with fucking Uncle Ruckus. Candace Owens killed Kanye West, and that's what grinds my fucking beans.
But that's where the money is. You know, so that's what there's like, you're always going to find people who will like do your dirty work for you if you got some money.
Have you heard about the cop gangs in LA?
Yeah.
That shit. When I heard about that shit, like, we always knew that there was like, you know, cops that were affiliated with gangs or had some when I recently heard that there was full-on gangs and some of the names that they took, I'm like, y'all stole actual fucking gang names of like different minority groups. You stole their names and made them into your cop gang names. Can you look up that story, Jesus, for me, please? Because it was fucking amazing. It was like it's like they had the Reapers and what was it like? It was like the fucking the Lions, huh? Did you get it?
Yeah, some of the names is like the executioners, the banditos, the regulators, the smart.
The regulators.
Yeah, the cowboys and the reapers. I think.
P.S. The first cowboy was black. Yeah. I still love when I found that out. Y'all motherfuckers never had anything original. I don't even think mayonnaise was created by you, and niggas don't even like that shit. My mind is blown by the shit that y'all motherfuckers sold. Y'all, the fact that they have, you know, Dora the Explorer and they have Swiper, you know, Swipey.
Yeah.
That should just be a white man. That should just be a straight up white man.
Oh
just
my God.
Fucking coming up, because that would, the fact that it's a fox and she has a purple grayish monkey doesn't make much sense. Let's make this shit a little bit more realistic. Let's have a white man and then sit up here and have Dora being what is she, Hispanic, and then just having a black homegirl. Just having a black home, that's realistic, and then just a white man just constantly coming up stealing they shit. How do you feel about this, Jesus?
You said it. I'm like, you're not wrong. Honestly, I do have a question though, because like we brought up the LA gangs. There's like over 20 gangs that are like documented.
The cop gangs, right?
Yeah.
In like LA alone, there's only 20.
Do you know that the sheriff that is in control of that shit right now, sheriff, chief of police, whatever the fuck it is, first came out and said they don't exist. Mm-hmm. And then came back out and was like, yes, they do exist, but they're only in this way. It's better for society that we have these gangs. Do you know that they bring turkey dinners and do Christmas, blah, blah, blah? I was
God.
like, you know that's in every fucking black gangster movie, right? that the gang leader sits up here and brings out the turkeys and all this other shit, and you're trying to use that as an example of them doing good? Come on, motherfucker. Y'all really think we that stupid? It was fucking horrible. Keep going. What were you saying, Jesus?
I was gonna say, going back to like, how our neurons, like, how do you feel like that would play into them coming into like creating a gang within an ecosystem, which
is already a gang?
Yes, but also understanding the history of a cop, it makes sense why it ends up going in this direction. But like you said, I'm just curious on how you feel like those type of the way our brains are wired, how they would lead to these type of examples that we see.
There's a lot going on there for sure. Yeah. Holy smokes. And I think that it's like, I think that probably the three of us in this room have a much better idea of like the history of policing than like the average cop. Right? Like that's not what they didn't show up with like a history degree in like slave patrols. Like they don't know that shit.
It's always funny that they seem to forget they were slave catchers.
Yeah.
That's the origin. That's the origins of police.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because people would just like watch their own communities before cops existed. Yeah. And that was just a thing that you did. That was just part of being in a community, was you participated in like the night watch or whatever they were calling it. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that there is definitely a piece of that sort of replication of ideas. And again, like I see this all the time in whiteness, that there aren't any new ideas. Like creative imagination sort of dies when
the paler you get.
It's like the more you're committed to that like ideology or just not questioning it, right? It's like there's not a lot of creative imagination in those spaces. And because again, like if there were, we could be talking about alternatives to policing to keep people safe.
I mean, we always try to, and they every time we do, they shut it the fuck down.
No.
I still feel like the defund the police was just bad word choice.
It was just poor marketing.
Horrible fucking marketing. And you know what? And the thing I honestly believe about that, I believe like a white person came up with that. I think that was a fucking Karen's fucking like, you know what we need to do? We need to defund the police. And it's like, I feel like there's a better way we could say it. No, Antoine. You're defunding the police. I feel like it's a little bit on the head. Like maybe we could come up with a better terminology of this.
No.
Yeah.
No, we can't. That's as good as it's gonna get. No, I mean, the marketing there matters, but I think that like within the construct of policing, it's like, oh, we can't exist without this, right? Like this is essential to the survival of civilization, that we have like 7 layers of cops above us, like every person in the country. It's like there's like 4 to 7 jurisdictions of policing over you. Right? And it's like these gang names, again, it's like there's no creative imagination. We have to copy what we see being done because we can't come up with our own ideas. It's just like this stunting of growth.
Oh yeah.
As like an individual and on like the group level. I don't know. I'm just like, I really wish that there was somebody that I could call to come out who wasn't like a dude with a gun who just got broken up with by his girlfriend, who's now like in a rage and has no reason to control himself because there's no accountability, because that's what we decided we want.
No, I mean, and I think you nailed it on the head when you said accountability. We have a criminal system that has no accountability.
Yeah.
And it's the thing that we still have people that we know that are in prison for crimes that they didn't commit. We have people that have been executed by cops who can... Oh, I can't. It was on the recent Philip DeFranco show where they were talking about a black dude that was just killed by cops, and it was another essentially choking. He was smothered to death because he had handcuffs and prison shackles on, and they're on top of him, and they smothered the brother to death.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how can we post George Floyd live in a world where cops are still killing handcuffed black individuals?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and y'all motherfuckers haven't gotten to the point of at least not getting caught on film with it.
Right.
I'm like, how much do you suck as a gang in doing your job that you guys are your own surveillance is busting your ass doing this shit?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's because there are no consequences in that system, which is
Qualified immunity.
Which is part of why it's a problem, right? But we're spending billions of dollars. Like, American policing is the third largest military on the planet. So, in terms of costs, right? In terms of like the actual expenditure,
They get tanks.
yeah, they do.
When have you, out of all the times that, like, because at some point in life, everyone's had to call the police for some reason.
Something.
And it's like, one, I've never had one of those interactions happen where something has been settled and finalized and done.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
It's like, hey, there's a person going through X, Y, Z, need help. They're literally setting things on fire.
Right.
It's like, but y'all pulled the gun on me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always, I'm like, y'all have all this technology, surveillance equipment, tanks, all this other bullshit. Y'all can't handle a motherfucker with the aerosol can and a lighter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, my favorite thing in the world is that you always see the image of firefighters getting cats out of trees. You know why? Because cops don't have a fucking ladder, but they do have a fucking tank.
Uh-huh.
Like, that shit. Yeah, that shit just it's. And also my favorite thing is that every time that they have to call out the police for like a medical emergency, they always have to call out the EMT and the fire department because they can't trust those niggas to handle a situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't even know how to respond to that. Frankly, I'm like, should I just say everything's a medical emergency so that I get someone who doesn't have a gun showing up here? Like, I don't know. Like, what's the solution, right? But
If the fire department had its own phone number, I feel like no one would call the police anymore.
Well, I mean, the fire department, like, there are fewer firefighters who actively start fires. We can just put it that way. Like, whereas cops are very, like, there's no accountability.
No.
There's none. And then it's funny that, like, they're not legally required to do anything ever. So, like, why do you exist? Like, the Supreme Court ruled that they don't have any obligation to protect or serve.
Oh yeah. That they're just to enforce the laws, not to sit up here and actually stop crime. Like, in the sense of being like preventative measures.
Or even intervening in something that's already happening. Like, they're not legally required to do that.
Oh yeah, because they had that situation where the cop told. All right, so they basically did this huge bust where I can't remember what city it was. I just recently watched this, where the cops were doing this huge bust. It was multiple different departments, and in the multiple different departments that were doing the bust, there's one jail. What? I like how I put the thing on silent too, and it still rang. And it was spam. That they had the multiple different departments. They had 3 different departments going to one jail. So they were giving priority to one specific department. And so the other 2 departments had to wait. But how they were doing it, you would think, would be in a line, being like, all right, cool, you come in first, and then you, and then you. They didn't do that. They're only letting the one group of officers in and making the other 2 wait while crimes were still being committed. There was a bank robbery that happened. There was a shooting that happened, and they're all fucking around waiting at this shop because they would only let 5 cops in at a time to come to sit up here and book the defendants. It happened for so long and so bad that the cops were threatening to arrest the other cops within this situation. Check it out. It gets worse. Then they brought down each other's sergeants to sit up here and deal with this, and it became like a whose dick is bigger. That one of the officers was told by their sergeant, use your police vehicle to block the jail so no one can get in and or leave. Because if we ain't going to be able to handle our shit, they ain't going to be able to handle it. That turned into such a situation that they were like literally about to physically start fighting with each other. That the third group of officers that were stuck outside that used their car to block finally decided, fuck it, we're not getting in this jail tonight. We're just going to give all, and this is like a lot, like 20 different people. We're going to give these 20 different people that we have arrested tonight, all who have federal charges. None of them are like misdemeanors or anything else. All federal charges. We're just going to give them a court date and let them go in this back alley. Because there's no way for us to get them in.
Yeah.
That's the same group that is in charge of, protecting and serving us, and somehow think that they're going to be able to. I'm like, are they a successful gang?
They're only successful because nobody can do anything about it. Like,
no, I mean, in the sense, I'm like,
are they accomplishing things?
What is a gang's main objective?
Money,
controlling their community.
Yeah.
So they don't watch over their own community.
No.
They go to other communities.
They don't give a fuck. They don't live there.
And
yeah.
I remember one of the things that they talked about during the story about this was that they get tattoos. And so that they get certain tattoos, these officers that are making the gangs.
LA County.
Yeah. LA County. That they have, so if they have like a gun, they'll then make it have a smoking barrel once they've killed a person within X, Y, and Z and different stuff like that. And I'm just like, how do y'all know about this shit? And all this bad shit happening, Google's like letting go of 9,000 employees. Y'all motherfuckers got dudes with the tattoos, the gangs are within this shit, and y'all motherfuckers ain't doing shit. And now there's like huge news stories coming out about this, and y'all still ain't doing shit.
Yeah.
All right. So I heard that you're writing some books, and also you're doing some educational lessons.
Yeah.
All right. Well, because I looked on my thing and I must have closed out of it. What is the website again?
Oh, well, I mean, I guess that kind of depends. So my website is just the same as my Twitter and Instagram. It's just toriglass.com. But yeah, I'm working on almost done with actually an anti-racism workbook. So that is essentially kind of giving people the tools to go in and like do their own work, like look at where did I come from, like what narratives was I being given, as a kid in school, in college, like how do I participate in these systems, and like what can I do to mitigate harm? So originally where this all came from, this idea of white homework came from, like, I had all of these white people who were asking me, like, I totally agree with what you're saying, and like, but what do I do about racism? And I'm like, well, I don't know you, so I don't know what you should be doing, right? Like, it kind of depends on like where you are socioeconomically, and it depends on like what kind of margin you have, what kind of access you have, like how much time you have, right? And there's all of these different aspects that kind of come into play in order to sort of go, okay, like here's something that I think that you could do in your situation, right? Like I can go and tell my best friends, like, hey, yeah, if they were to come to me and be like, what? Okay, I want to do something about racism more than what I'm doing now. Like, what would that look like? I'm like, okay, well, I know about how much you make every month. I know about I know where your parents live. I know all of this stuff about you. I can give you information because I know enough, right? But for strangers on the internet, like, God bless them, I don't know anything about you. I can't really help. And so I finally was just like, I need to like just make this thing to like give white people their own work. My friend Sonia always says, like, white people need a job, and that job is not to be in charge. And so I'm like, okay, this is what we're doing.
Kyle's got a good ass job.
And so I was like, okay, here, I'm just going to create this thing. I'm going to like let people figure it out on their own. I'm like, we're all adults. Like you can do your own stuff. You can do your own work. So essentially, there are within the workbook, there are like multiple different modules that
Why
are
when you
like,
said workbook, I just went back to like elementary school.
that's the point. That's literally the point. Like that's why I'm doing it this way, is because I want people to sit down and like either like physically or just like with the PDF, whatever that ends up looking like, because I know different people are different. Sit down and like ask yourself some hard questions, right? Like so one of the questions, there's a whole section on just like early childhood and lessons. Oh yeah. So if you scroll down
don't
here,
you love that we can do this?
yeah, no, if you scroll down here, so this is basically like a mini version of the workbook that's coming out. So that one's free if you want to like take a look at it.
Tug the cord in the back of the stream deck. I don't know what the heck is going on. Just all right. I'm gonna try to redo this one more again.
It's trying really hard.
It is. Oh my goodness. All right. Just come on. All right, can you just bring it up on the like the iPad or the computer over there, since obviously it's hating my guts. I don't hold on. Let me see if I can have the adapters. Okay. Let's see if this. That's not going. Damn it, Jesus. I'm pretending like I'm blaming this on you. I'm not blaming this on you.
I'm just like, all right, well, I have it pulled up. So if you want to pull it back.
I'm gonna give this one last effort of this computer. If it doesn't work, I'm handing it off to you. How did I literally? There it is. Okay. Okay. Coolio. I think that should work. I'm just gonna leave it plugged in over here. Sorry for our audio listeners, but you know, if you listen to the show long enough, you know this is what happens. Okay. So
yeah. So this is a free version. Like anybody can just go and grab that. And it's got like a couple of questions in it. The full workbook is a lot more expansive. But talking about like your childhood and like what kinds of like
it's gonna make me put all my information.
Yeah, all your information. So
let's.
I should have just sent it to you before I came over. I should have just emailed it to you.
Can you download it over there, Jesus?
Yeah. So essentially, like look at like where you came from. Like, what was your community like? What roles did you see people of color play in your community? Right? Mm-hmm. Were they people who had jobs that were like considered respectful or respectable, or was it mostly people who were like working class or doing jobs like white folks didn't want to do? And going back and like examining like what kinds of narratives were you given about people of color, either explicitly or implicitly, right?
How would your parents feel like if you brought Antoine home?
Literally stuff like that, right? Where I want people to do some like pretty serious self-reflection of like, okay, what was I actually being told, right? Like, I know Uncle Mike, whatever, maybe he's a good dude, but he also says the N-word, so it's like, where was this shit coming from? Because you internalize that.
Especially, let me ask you this, in Portland growing up here, because it's, and I'm going to make a bold statement. You, a person of mixed race background, just letting you know, I because of my racial draft choices, I have been labeled as a colorist.
Amazing. Amazing.
I'm not.
Amazing.
I get to now sound like a white person. It's like my children are mixed. Which is technically my child is. My daughter is white as the driven snow. No. Within growing up in Oregon, it's a thing that you are surrounded by white culture, because it's very easily to grow up here and be like, yo, I'm one of 2 black kids at a school, or a handful of black kids within the community, or whatever else. And I know for a lot of, especially people of mixed race background, depending on what your situation is, there's a lot of adopted kids that are other races in Portland. Oh, did you just send me the thing? That's what's up. Hey,
sweet.
For myself by myself. Basically, my question is this: is it a thing that it's actually white culture and not white people directly? Like, I think it comes from white people, but it is their cultural norms and the societal things that are the problem, because I think it does affect certain black people that then become, for lack of a better term, the Carlton Banks.
Yeah.
And then fall into those trappings of white culture. And then get those stereotypes, get those ideals, and that is the inherent problem, that we diagnose it and we make it being white people itself, when it is white culture that is actually the thing that is a problem.
I think it's both, right? I think it's, I think it's the people that are around you. I think it's your environment. And so that's really sort of what I try to dig into with this. So basically starts off with like early childhood, school, stuff like that. And this, there's a couple of questions in that one. It's not super, super long or detailed or anything like that. But there's like a really big section on like mass incarceration and like asking people to kind of do their own research, right? But like go and like find out like where are prisons being built in your state right now?
Yeah.
Right? Like how many people died in prisons and jails in your state in the last year? Right? Like go and look at these systems and like figure out what's actually happening, because I think that it's absolutely both, right? There's like this normalization of just like the demonization of black and brown people across the board. But there's also the individual conversations that you're having with your teachers and your family members and like kids in your community and all of these other things that also impact and influence the way that you engage with people, right? And I think that, I mean, we know and data shows that like white people literally have a slower mirror neurons, like empathy response, seeing black and brown people experience injury or harm than they do for other white people.
World star.
Like they literally just, it's not like it doesn't register the same way. We literally don't register as people in the same way.
No, I mean, there's no... Yo, Jesus, correct me if I'm wrong. There's no white version of World Star. No. Like.
Well, it's America's funniest home videos. A lot more wholesome.
Oh wow, wow! White people's World Star is America's most funniest home videos. Wow, that's a lot, bro. That's a lot to unpack right there. So lead us through this.
Yeah, so this one is, like I said, it's just a mini one, but I'm like, I really want people to understand that like, this is your work, right? Like, and this tool is really about like retraining your brain to see racism where it exists instead of just to see everything as normal. So the example that I use all the time is like, there's never going to be a movie about like some hotshot Native attorney in New York City who like quits his job because he feels called to save all the starving white babies in Iowa. Like that's never going to be a movie. That's never going to be a book. Like no one's ever going to write. Nobody cares, right? That doesn't go into the narrative because we have been coded a certain way. We have been coded to see white people as saviors. And so to go back and really critically examine that shit, I think is really, really important to be able to unpack and create new connections, right? Because it's like when you have like bias and bigotry, that's just you've internalized because you live in this context. Yeah, it's like neurons that fire together, wire together, but we also have the ability to create new connections, right? We have the ability to create positive connections between people, experiences, places that were previously negative.
So is that like part of the reason why like the DeSantis group, DeSantos, is they're trying to make sure our children aren't wired a certain way, that they don't sit up here and have these empathy.
So what's really, really interesting about this is like a lot of these bills that are like what they're calling anti-critical race theory bills, which whatever. They're not just going after like books and stories and like trying to ban books and whatever and trying to get rid of certain people's histories in this country. Like they're not just doing that. A ton of them are also trying to ban social and emotional development because that is empathy building. And they know that empathy is a threat to their entire power structure.
Yeah.
Right? Like you cannot see other people as people and also be engaging in like constant harm, right? Or benefiting from harm against other people. Like if you're benefiting from prisons, let's just say, like they're probably hundreds of thousands of people because we have like private prisons, and people can just like use them as investment tools to like make money.
Yeah, modern day slavery.
Yeah, and so like we have all of these things. People are materially benefiting from this bullshit anti-black, anti-native, anti-everybody narrative that we've been given.
Especially by the Clintons that set up here and did the whole entire, hey, we're going to be harder on crime. And
Yeah, well, I mean,
he's looked at as our white savior, though he's done some of the most harm to black communities.
And that, I mean, that goes back really far as well. But I think that it's worth noting that like this is the work that they are trying to do right now to like stop these stories from being told is because stories build empathy. So we can't show like a picture of like little black babies getting blown over by fire hoses because you might think that's wrong.
Well, I'm all right. So you know how they're doing this, like now we're in the AI version of the world. Like I feel like, the internet was like one of the internet and social media. Now we have AI. These big moments in time that will forever change things.
Yep.
I'm afraid of how they're going to alter our history and be able to, these images that we that get banned or are afraid to be shown. Like recently they had the fake arrest of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And it was like how viral and how quickly
that took
fake
off.
Pictures took off on the internet, and how quick it'll be that we'll be able to be like, oh, like the civil rights movement didn't happen like that. Like this is what happened. Right. Hey, because remember when everyone was trying to say like Martin Luther King was a cheater. He was also racist. He did X, Y, and Z, all this other stuff. Like how soon will it be till they'll be like, here's photographic evidence of this happening back in the day. Oh, here's this other evidence of stuff that, Fred Hampton did or fucking Angela Davis did.
Right.
Like, that is like the thing of you're talking about like these narratives and we don't teach and we don't have this documented in history and books the correct way that I'm afraid of. That I'm like, how soon is it that people are going to start rewriting our history and we have nothing to back it up?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I mean, thankfully there are at least a couple of people who are working in AI who are cognizant of the fact that like this shit is happening. And people who are like, I'm not even sure what the correct term is, but like people who do technology ethics, essentially, right? And like what are the ethical implications of like letting the internet be an absolute free for all? Like anything goes, anybody can say whatever they want, like all information is created equal. So like some dude's blog post about like, oh, the Irish people were actually the slaves in the US is just as valid as like something that gets posted by like whitehouse.gov or cnn.com. Like it's all the same, right? It's like, well, you know, I did my own research. And so there's a lot of different there's a lot of things that are really at play there, and it is really important to be cognizant of that fact. And also, you know, because I don't think that they're going to continue to let teachers teach like, you know, essentially how to do research on the internet. Like I feel like if they're coming after books, if they're coming after history, if they're coming after social emotional learning, like they're also pretty soon going to be coming after like how to be safe online. You know, how to make sure that your sources come from a place that is valid.
We still use Wikipedia like it's the encyclopedia.
Yeah, we do.
Which is a scary thought of like, hey, yo, people can en masse just write anything that they want to, edit the history of any subject matter on Wikipedia. And it's like, y'all motherfuckers never donate to that. You know when every year it comes up, it's like one cup of coffee can sit up here and fund this for data. It's like nobody does that. So like, how long till some person comes up and it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna buy Wikipedia. I'm gonna rewrite history. I'm gonna rewrite the facts about these people.
Yeah,
this is the source of the internet. So bye bye.
Yeah, it's real, and I think that like the constant bombardment of basically just manufactured content that is presented as fact or as history, that again, like it's the same like neuron response, right? Of like neurons that fire together, wire together. If you're seeing something about like a non-existent basement in a pizza shop where they're keeping all of the babies that the Clintons want to eat, like if you see that enough times, you're going to believe it.
I don't even think that it becomes like it becomes a belief thing, but I think it becomes a belief thing for certain segments.
Yeah,
it's like,
for sure.
Then all of a sudden your children are built or grow up with this belief that the Clintons only did X, Y, and Z. And the thing that I always feel is like a scary thing is we tell one half of history.
Yeah.
And then it takes like, you know, X amount of time or generations, and especially now it's happening with the internet age of things going viral, that it's like, oh, did you know this other side of history? Did you know this other side of the story of this person? Whether it is good or bad for society. And I think that that's where I come to the point of being like, it's white culture and it's deeper than just a race thing. It's an economics thing.
Yep.
That people miss out on. That it's like, when we say white people, what we really mean is this upper class purist mindset that uses minorities and different groups to tell their narrative to prove that they are pure, that they're right, that they are the only ones that can lead or save us.
Yeah.
And that they know better than any other group for a myriad of different reasons.
Yeah.
And I get scared now because we have these Uncle Ruckuses of the world, these Candace Owens. What's the other one that is the younger black girl that has like the big puff that she usually wears? That these are like looked at as the most intelligent, articulate people of the black community, and they're put up and used to be like, this is the truth about our culture and our society.
Right.
And it becomes a thing that not only are they doing a disservice to minorities and black people and brown people in general, but I think it more deeply goes. So it's like, yo, these people are the representation for a lot of people of what a good black woman is.
Yep.
And it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Candace Owens is a scary ass motherfucker. If I'm gonna believe someone's got children in a basement, it's that woman. Yo, I'm when they all right. Best way I can say, when they did the movie Get Out, they should have based that on Candace Owens on a like a crazy ass. Instead of being the white people on the farm and everything else with the black slave, it should have been Candace Owens on that motherfucker, trapping black people, making them believe into this fucked up narrative that isn't true, and then they get flashes of light. They get, you know, how they had the tea party, her doing the tea and shit makes a lot more sense now with Candace Owens in that shit than it does the movie that we actually got. Also, fuck Key and Peele.
Okay.
I'm gonna leave it at this. Niggas shouldn't take from other niggas.
Oh, well, that's fair. That's real.
And I think the world would be a better place is instead of us finding opportunities when other people of culture lose their opportunities, that we fight when they lose their opportunities and start to help share their narratives. Because I'll give two prime examples. One, we should have set up here when Dave Chappelle, when everyone said he was crazy and he went out to whatever else, should have stuck up for the brother. Should have been more people coming to his aid of realizing, like, why would you leave X, Y, and Z amount of money when the white people giving it to you? He gave you $50 million. You walked away from it. You went to Africa or whatever else. Think that Key and Peele, those different comedians, should have stuck by Dave. Second example is, this is problematic, and I admit it. We need to save our brother Kanye. We need to hold that nigga tight. And I'm not saying what he said was okay or anything else like that. I'm saying that when we actually have one of our brothers go through something, one of our sisters go through something, we need to grab that nigga, get him away from Candace Owens, and maybe send his ass to Africa and let him get some healing and some cleansing.
This is really okay. Like, this is really interesting because this is, oh my gosh, this is another thing I've been stuck on and I'm like trying to figure out because I don't know how to do it, right? I don't know. Something that I've realized is that like a lot of people on the left, you have like a more consistent internal like moral compass or like ethical framework or what have you, but the way that we interact with one another interpersonally is still, it's all carceral logic, right? It's all getting rid of people and excluding people. And I don't know what it looks like to like undo some of the like shitty, like how do we undo some of the shitty stuff Kanye said? Like, what does that look like? What does it look like for him to come back and go like, oh, I fucked up. I'm going to make amends for this. Like, what does it look like for Dave Chappelle to come back and be like, I'm going to do right by X, Y, or Z group, right? And I'm like, that's what I want, but I don't know. We don't have any framework. We don't have any modeling of like restorative justice or like conflict resolution or like what does it look like to bring people back in when they fucked up? Because we're all going to fuck up at some point. I think that people with more power are like have a bigger responsibility there to be like conscious of that. But at the end of the day, we don't have any systems for like restoring people and not just restoring people like, oh, we're giving you a pass. You get to do whatever you want. You get to run your mouth. It doesn't matter. But like, what does it look like to do like actual like restorative justice?
I think the first question before we can even dive into that one, the first question I got to ask you on that, how did you feel about the protests in Portland?
The protests in 2020?
Yeah, just in general, recent history. How did you feel about it?
So I was like torn. I felt kind of torn. You know, I think that there was like a lot of white nonsense going on, and I am also like I'm not total. I mean, I know like a lot of people that were involved there again are like people who have like a pretty consistent like internal ethical framework, which I respect. And also, it's like sometimes some shit gets messy, right? Like shit gets really messy, and I know, and I saw, and I was paying attention. Like there were like all of these black elders in the community, when that shit started going down, were like, okay, so like, let me tell you how this is going to shake out. And they nailed it. The whole thing, right?
Exactly how it was going to go down to damn near like the minute into the tea.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. They did that. And I think that, I don't know, but this is where I've been learning and leaning is that like, there's probably some wisdom and some insight, like that black elders have that like people of color, like elders in general, just sort of that have in terms of like what restorative justice could look like, because we don't have that framework. We don't see that happening anywhere. And I don't know. I mean, I think that there has to be something better than like excluding people, right? Because then they're just going to go completely off the rails. But I don't know what accountability looks like for someone like Kanye or Dave Chappelle. I have no idea.
I always, when I look at restorative justice and I look at people being, none of our civil rights leaders back in the day would ever survive in today's climate. None of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I always use a prime example. Malcolm X was a pimp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everyone erases that history from him. Everyone more so looks at it as, look at what the Muslims did to their own. Like that. That is the framework.
That's the framing we're given.
And I come down to this point every single time with it. We can't agree on a narrative for us we can't name ourselves correctly. Are we BIPOC? Are we POC? Are we people of color? Are we brown?
Yeah.
Like, we can't get our labels right. How are we supposed to get the definition of what we're asking for right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that like troubles me, is like within what you were getting to is the restorative justice. Like, we have been so messed up and mixed up within our history. My favorite thing during the protests was in there like, hey, we're going to have our natives, brothers and sisters come up and they're going to use our platform for X, Y, and Z. And I was like, cool, word. Yeah, definitely share the platform. Fred Hampton, let's do it.
Yeah.
Power to the people. I'm all the way with that. Then it started to become, hey, we need to only showcase these people laying back, doing this. And I was just like, word. We do know this is because of a brother dying, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, and they're like, oh, this is the history. You know, not only did white people do this, but there is a history of black da-da-da-da-da. And I was just like, y'all bringing up the wrong shit, because I could say you do know Native Americans had slaves, right? And then after Juneteenth and the emancipation of the slaves, they tried to keep the slaves. So let's not sit up here and point out each other's history about what we did and how we did it. Let's recognize our history, recognize none of us was perfect, but we trying to do good now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if within the justice system of stuff, sometimes you got to realize, hey, I got to forgive, but not forget to get to the other side of this road.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot there that you can really you can use in these kinds of situations, and I've, you know, as I said, I've been trying to like talk to people about what does this actually functionally look like, right? Because for me, like the framing, I'm all about harm reduction, and you know, again, like it's a flawed model, but like it's the idea like all tools are bad, but some tools are useful, right? That we have all this information and we have all this language, and we talk about like abolition, and we talk about like restorative justice, and we talk about whatever language it is that we're using, right? Because again, it's like language is changing every day, so it's really difficult to really nail down even what we're asking for. That being said, like trying to find places and examples and resources and history about like, okay, what does that look like? What does it look like to make things right by people groups who what's the term that I'm thinking of? Lateral racism, right? Like lateral harm done between like people of color of different groups, right? What does that look like, right? And really exploring, because I think that we're all stuck in this, even if we have really good politics, even if we have like really consistent like internal morals or ethics, whatever language you want to use. When it comes down to like the interpersonal stuff, we have no idea what to do. Like the only tools I feel like we really have are exclusion and cutting people off. And so I'm trying to like study and learn, like, what does it look like to expand that, right? Mm-hmm. Like, what does it look like to expand? My friend Andre Henry talks about this all the time, but like expand the idea of nonviolent struggle, right? And it's like, that doesn't mean like we're not going to protect ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that doesn't mean that we're not going to stand our ground. But I think that there is like some work to be done, some exploration to be done there. And like, I hope that at some point that we can see something like that modeled. I mean, I don't think that, probably just because of my age, like I know more about Kanye than I do about Dave Chappelle, but like, I'm like, okay, this is something that, I'm like sitting with and I'm thinking about, because it's like, it doesn't, people who've done really fucked up shit have like changed their tune. Like they've made amends. Right. So I think that, if you're willing to make amends, if you're willing to own whatever it was that you did, said, what have you, like that matters, right? Like that like repair is actually more important than like keeping the peace or not having arguments in terms of building strength into a relationship. Mm-hmm. And we have like no tools or framework for repair.
I think you just said it best. It's a relationship. Yeah. Relationships aren't perfect. Yeah. And relationships don't mean you're not going to fight, and relationships don't mean you're not going to say the right thing every single time. Mm-hmm. I think that if we had to ask of what we want and what the end goal is, it's equality. And that's the thing, no matter in what group, how you're disenfranchised, what, like, you want equality. I want to be seen just as much as the person next to me, no matter what they are. Mm-hmm. Now, I find it funny, and Jesus can account to this, the Nike campaign for equality that they do for Pride now, that was originally a black campaign.
Oh, okay.
And it's crazy to me that I was like, not only in Portland is it switched between, hey, we went from black, where, we had the Nike stores in the black community where they were, then from being going to black to it going to LGBT, and it then moving to like the rainbow and everything else. And I'm like, so are we not included within that? Mm-hmm. Like, are black people not gay? Like, are black people not trans?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
So you're going to put it in this light within things. Okay. So if we want equality, and even when people are understanding and trying to grasp what that means, we also have to realize, like I was saying earlier about relationships, we are not going to articulate it perfect every time. Fuck, I can say what I was trying to say earlier about women in the correct way, to be like, yo, I just want this narrative to feel right about them. Mm-hmm. And so I think that it's the thing it's twofold. We have to find the equality within us as people. Yeah. As people of color, just first, coming together, and realizing no matter what flag we wave, that's what we want first and foremost. Yeah, and then not get into, and it's the oppression Olympics of who's gone through what the worst, right? And not to tack on, like, you know what? I'm not only black, I'm also femme presenting, I'm also disabled, I am also this, so you can't speak because I've done and been through the most. Like, we can't do that to each other. We have to be willing to be like, this person's done wrong. Instead of calling them out, we're bringing them in.
Right.
And we have to do that as a unit and not just segmented groups of people. It can't be like the Black community is fighting to bring this person back in because X, Y, and Z. And then everybody else be like, well, nah, fuck them. They did us wrong.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like if we're trying to heal somebody and then we hear something from the other side that we don't like, not only are we going to segregate ourselves again,
Right.
like there's no room for growth because there's nothing to nurture.
Yeah, there's nothing to nurture. We're just constantly cutting people off. And I think, I don't know if this is true, but it seems like it could potentially be true that like the internet has a really big influence on this, because there was like the internet and also like pandemic and lockdown and all that stuff. Like we were so cut off from each other, right? That it was like there wasn't a lot of community happening at all. And I think that so we started policing people, right? Like we weren't having like the face-to-face discussions as frequently.
We're out in those protests all over the country.
Yes, that is true. But I mean, that's like for Portland, like it was how long were the protests? It was like 100 days or something like that.
Oh, it was well over that. It was I mean, are we talking about when they stopped being effective and big and being shown and broadcast? Probably like around like 120, maybe 150 days, something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, and see stuff like that is like, that's an emergency. So that's kind of not where you're having, if my kid's in a car crash, that's not the time that I'm going to be having like a lecture with my other kid of like, okay, listen, like your brother's in the ambulance, but we need to talk because I don't like what you said to me. Like emergencies are very different situations, right? In terms of like community, relationship, and restoration. And so when that shit is going down, because it's like it's going to happen again, right? There's going to be another one, and there's going to like people are going to shut shit down because
you don't think we've been desensitized to it?
I don't think so. Like many people have for sure, but I think that there's going to be other shit that goes down. Like the system hasn't changed, right? So it's going to keep producing the same results. Yeah, but I think that we end up policing each other in this way that is just, it's harmful to us as individuals. It's harmful to communities. But again, it's like, that's the model that we see. That's what we see happening around us. So that's how we think we need to treat one another. And like I said, I don't have answers, right? Like I can have a conversation with you that I can't have with somebody who's on TV every day. Right? Like I can't hold somebody,
Tucker Carlson.
I can't hold those people accountable, right? Like even if I want to, even if I'm like, I feel like this is the right thing to do. I feel like morally that like, white people need to do their own work. They need to like call in their own people and fix their own shit. But I think we have to model that because they don't have that either. It's not like they're seeing it anywhere. Yeah. I think people of color have to model what that like restoration could potentially look like, and again, like making shit right, because I think that that's what to me, I'm like, when I'm advocating for reparations, I'm like, that's about making shit right. It's not like you are a bad person and you did something wrong and you have to give me your shit. It's like, no, you benefited from a theft. Like maybe you weren't the thief, but you benefited, so you need to make that right. And I think that I think that that's true of people of color who have really big platforms and say fucked up shit or go off the rails or forget to take their meds, like honestly. And like there's all kinds of we run our mouths all the time. Like all of us say fucked up shit sometimes. It's not even like we're trying to be harmful, right? It's just if you talk, you're probably going to say something that like, well, maybe
long enough, you're going to say something fucked up.
Exactly. And so I think that like,
ideally,
like for me, I would love to start that work on like a community level. Like, what does restoration look like? Sort of person to person, neighborhood to neighborhood, community to community, and what does it look like to bring people back in? Because I think that you're right, and this is something that I've been thinking about. I don't know. This is all my work, so I think about this shit all the time. Yeah. But I'm always looking in nature for examples of like ways to do life. And one thing that I was really struck by was I was watching some weird video on probably YouTube. And it was when the pandemic happened. It was about like a virus or bacteria or something that like gets into like the bloodstream. And so they're showing this video of like these white blood cells that like they come and surround it and they like take the thing apart so that it can't do any more harm. And I was like, oh, that surrounding piece, I think that's what needs to happen, right? Because when you're surrounding the thing, it can't do more harm. Right? And it's like, okay, we're not letting you go until we can like break some of this shit down, like get you to the point where you see what you're doing and you see like, oh, I need to go be different. You know, like my partner always says, he's like, don't be sorry, be different. And I think that that's really like I think that's really the work, right? That we have to do. And I think that, yeah, that model really made me think like, oh shit, like we've really been doing this all wrong, right? And like rejecting people and expelling people. It's like, no, we need to just like lock that shit down.
I think that's the one thing that like churches, especially black churches, would be like, yo, this brother did a foul, did an X, Y, and Z. We're not going to bring him in and try to, but, you know, also it comes with that dogmatic religion that's all crazy and made by white people. So, you know, ebbs and flows. All right, we're going to get into our last segment of the day.
Okay.
I hope you are prepared. The first one is my new favorite. This next segment is the racial draft, and we are going to represent the black delegation, where we get to pick, you know, now who to bring in, maybe who to exit out. I think I might. I'm gonna let, do you have one for the racial draft, or can I start it off?
You should, definitely go. I'm here for this.
I'm going to officially reject Candace Owens from the black delegation. I don't think you need to be black anymore, sister. I don't think there's any cookouts that you need to go to that you need to be handling, because you know what? You look and sound like a person that puts raisins in fucking
potato salad.
Yeah, you look like you don't sit up here and season your chicken. Like, yeah, I'm, and this is what I'll say. You've hurt the black community in a number of different ways in different directions, and you can just go on and just be with whites. Go on with that culture. Go on and do that shit.
That's what you want anyway.
I mean, like I'll put it this way. Ain't no sister trying to hang with you. Ain't nobody being like, hey yo, let's run up to Krispy Kremes real quick. I saw the sign on earlier when I was driving by your house. Let's get a hot dozen real quick. Nobody's saying that to you, sister.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Nobody. Do you have anyone you want to bring into the delegation or remove from the delegation?
Man, I mean, I definitely have a lot of thoughts. I've been salty for a minute about Senator Tim Scott, and how his major piece of legislation that he was advocating for, that he was like it's doing like all of this, like he's talking about like inner cities and like doing
bring up a picture of Tim Scott while we
restoration and whatever, and I'm like going through and like looking at this, like it's his signature piece of legislation. I'm like, dude, this is gentrification, like that's all this is. And I'm like, this is so fucked up. But like, I'm sure he was put like as the lead on that because it's a black face, and it's like, we got to do something about these cities because they're out of control. Yeah, so anyway, I'm just like, come on, man. Like, I really want better for you than this bullshit. I'm not going to lie. But again, it's like, it pays, you know, he's a goddamn senator. So
I don't understand how you get, I do, but it's weird to me how you can get into these government platforms and all of a sudden then you become money hungry about stuff. And I'm just like, so you weren't always this way?
I mean, he was raised poor, man. Like, he grew up in poverty. So
but that's the thing, is that like,
right, exactly. But then they realize like, oh shit, there actually is money out here if I'm willing to sell my soul. I don't gotta work. Right.
I get an office. Yep. I get stipends. I get to choose who gets money.
Get a staff.
I get to look like I'm a hero of my community.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyway, I was just like, okay.
You know what
Cool.
always happens, and I
Cool
mean
guy.
this, and I'm not trying to be fucked up and saying, it seems like when these kind of people get into office, they all of a sudden start to look more like a token nigga. Like physically, I mean,
Well, it's
like
the
they're
res-
just, they
it's the
just look like they're
respectability
doing the
politics.
voice, and everything else is gonna come out of them. Like, well, guys, come on. I'm just trying to be down.
No, like I think that's real. I think respectability politics plays out in a lot of ways, and especially in like how you present, how you talk. Like, absolutely.
I'm gonna say this without trying to say anyone's name. It also is weird to me now how they not only are looking for these black leaders, these tokens to be presented, but they're like, let's also find some that are are a part of other minority groups. Let's find someone with a disability. Let's find someone whose sexuality is X, Y, and Z. And then it's like you hear them and you talk to them and they say these things that sound like they make sense. It's like, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z, working with the police department to do this. You don't understand. We gotta change these certain parts, and then all of a sudden you talk to one of your elders, and they're like, this nigga been doing this shit since the 70s. He just trying to get their building program funded so he can sit up here and make millions of dollars because he owns his construction company. And I'm like, you for real? I'm like, you didn't know that? Baby, child. And then they give the whole entire thing of it. So it's you know what? I wholeheartedly agree with you. All token black or brown individuals trying to become a part of the government,
The system.
You out. All right, our next segment we're gonna do is going to be Grind Your Beans, where we talk about. Let me. Can you get the? Yes, my favorite part. So the next segment is Grind Your Beans, where we talk about what's irking you, bothering you, annoying you. It can be big, it can be small, it can be deep, it can be shallow. But let us know, Tori, what's grinding your beans?
Oh, okay. The thing that's grinding my beans right now is cars in cities. Don't think it should happen.
Cars and wait.
Like cars in like the downtown core. Have you been downtown ever? During like say winter holiday season. It is like traffic is stopped from like 9 a.m. to 6:37 p.m. Stopped downtown, like bumper to bumper traffic all the way through downtown because people are trying to do like all their Christmas shopping or whatever. Like we at least need to have like car free days. Like Mexico City does like a car free core on Sunday. And I'm like, this is what we need. We need like more public transportation, fewer cars on the road. I'm like, I want all of this. And it's like, a lot of the time it's faster to walk or bike.
I will agree with you in the sense of Portland does not have infrastructure for vehicles to get from point A to point B within anything that makes sense. Like if you have to go from I-84 at any time of the day, it sucks. And even being like, hey, I need to get to Washington and I'm going to take I-5 most times of the day. It sucks.
Right.
So yes, but I'll also say, yo, Portland, your pretend public transportation that you make whole entire lanes now dedicated to, and there's I will look straight down. I will be just over off of Hawthorne. I can look damn near all the way down to Lloyd Center, and there is not one bus and or train in that motherfucker. I'm sitting there looking at it just being like, so you telling me there's a whole ass lane we can be driving in, but we not, or it's some non-existent
public transportation?
Non-existent. And the thing that kills me the most is I'm just like, yo, figure out the ways that we can get to the public transportation. Like, yo, there's a subway system, or there's a light rail system, or like above ground, whatever.
Right.
To sit up here and do. Because the thing that I don't want to do, and this is controversial, I do not want to be at a bus stop, smells like piss, that has someone that's having a mental breakdown, and then I have to be there holding my kids' hands and trying to navigate this situation. Because, hey, I'm from Chicago. I've dealt with some stuff in my life. I might not handle this in the best situation and way possible. I might say some out-of-pocket stuff. So if we gonna do this, please figure some of these systems out. So it isn't a thing that I'm on the max, and then someone has a mental crisis, and then stabs 3 women of color, and then X, Y, and Z people die, and I'm not trying to deal with that. 'Cause that was a big thing for me. I wasn't having my kid on the max. They were going to a protest right after the stabbing happened. So I feel you. I agree with you. I would love to just be like, I parked my car over here. I'm just gonna bounce back and forth.
I can get around
with the light rail and everything else.
Yeah. No, I would love that too, and I can't do that right now either. So, would love to fix this.
Mm-hmm.
Would love to fix this.
Yes.
It's like my dream. I would love to be able to just get around without having to rely on a car, or it is. I get it. It's like, but having to navigate those situations with your kids is a lot. It's intense sometimes, and a lot of people are not comfortable with that, which means that a lot of people aren't using those services. So trying to figure out a way to, take care of these kind of logistical and interpersonal situations.
And maybe just make the max free within the city.
That for sure. Yeah. Sure.
I'm like, yo, you gonna charge me, especially with how inflation and everything else is, which used to be like $1 and some odd change ride. Now I'm just trying to get from Powell's over to the city Target, and all of a sudden that cost me $5. Mm-hmm. That don't make no sense.
Yeah.
What's grinding my beans? All right. What is grinding my beans and truly a point of annoyance, and I'm trying to find the right words to say this. I'm tired of Portland being weird.
What do you want to get rid of?
It was the thing that when I miss Portland when it was weird with Coke. I miss Coke weird Portland. I miss just every now and then you see a motherfucker on a unicycle with a Darth Vader helmet on.
Yeah.
I miss that kind of weird Portland. New weird Portland sucks. It is the bane of my existence. We used to be passive aggressive just when we drive. Now we passive aggressive with everything we fucking say. You can't say shit to a person in Portland no more. And the thing is that drives me nuts. Portland, you know what it is? I can sum it up real quick.
Yeah.
Portland ain't never got an ass whooping. Portland's never gotten its ass beat, and I'm fucking sick and tired of it. I am utterly. I want to punch Portland in the face one time and just be like, shut the fuck up. Because it's not the thing that I'm turning into a right wing person or anything else like that. That's not the situation. I'm always gonna be a nigga, and I'm always gonna want to stand up for my people. No, not. And I think they said this in the Woman King best. Not only the people from my tribe, all of my people. And I mean that like Fred Hampton said.
Yeah.
Power to the people. My people. I am so annoyed and so tired of all the weird shit in Portland, and it's being segregated and locked in, and only certain communities and only certain people can do, and this is the new norm. I'm like, yo, motherfuckers, just shut the fuck up. Get thicker skin and let's just go. Like, goddamn, man. Y'all ruined a whole entire fucking movement. Like, for real. Like you said, I was torn. I was torn between kicking y'all asses and trying to walk with y'all motherfuckers. And y'all need to learn how to clap on fucking beat. That's what's grinding my beans. Dear God. All right. This next segment is Sounds About White. We're gonna end it with this today. I'm hoping this is the right one. I'm trying to make sure. Ooh. All right. All right. There was a couple of them.
Yeah.
pretty good.
So I was like, how do you choose? How do you pick one?
I put them in. I think because you've mentioned it a couple of times today. Actually, I'm gonna go with this first one, and if I don't like it, I'm gonna put it in the second one. Okay. I'm hoping this is gonna work right now, Jesus. Oh, what? It's already not locking. Okay. All right. Boom. And then unmute. Turn up that volume.
Of Americans think that tackle football is appropriate. Heterosexual men voted the most support for kids doing football, and conservatives were more likely to support youth tackle football. Just saying.
So her insinuation is that football equals toxic masculinity. The all-American sport is a meritocratic, competitive, and yes, masculine game. So naturally, it's a target of the left.
Oh, who could have seen this?
That wasn't it. That was not the one that I thought it was. Okay.
Was reparations of all form and all sorts, because every racial ethnic group in this room could point to some part in the last 100 years, probably in their bloodstream, that was oppressed, that they could claim reparations. Any Jewish Americans here, any Asian Americans here, any Irish Americans here, so on and so forth. You ask the question, do you have a moral obligation to try to right the wrong by taking from now and redistributing? I say absolutely not. The best way to right the wrong is to protect freedom and to expand opportunity through things like school choice, through charitable giving, through deregulating the economy, encouraging entrepreneurship, and putting black fathers back in the house. I oppose reparations.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Sounds about white.
Charlie, just shut your damn mouth, my guy.
Dude, I recently, all right, so I've never seen this dude before, like
That's because he's like 12.
3 days ago.
Uh-huh.
And he's blown up on my timeline. Like, I see him more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, where the hell does this dude come from?
Mm-hmm.
Why does he sound like every other, like, white dude that had, like, these dudes are clones of each other.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many of them. There's like, I got really strong talking points and I know how to make you look stupid. And yeah, let's get this video for TikTok. Prove me wrong. Come on, guys. Prove me wrong. It's a lot. How do you feel about it?
Oh God, where to start?
No reparations.
Where to start? Yeah, deregulating the economy is good for the poors. Like that's a good one. Also, it's like I love what is your plan for putting black fathers back in the house? What did he say?
Yeah, put them back in the home. Yeah.
Because I'm like,
we can listen. We can listen to it again.
I'm like you.
All form and all sorts.
All form.
Racial ethnic group in this room could point to some part in the last 100 years, probably in their bloodstream, that was oppressed, that they could claim reparations. Any Jewish Americans here, any Asian Americans here, any Irish Americans here, so on and so forth. You ask the question, do you have a moral obligation to try to right the wrong by taking from now and redistributing? I say absolutely not. The best way to right the wrong is to protect freedom and to expand opportunity through things like school choice, through charitable giving, through deregulating the economy, encouraging entrepreneurship, and putting black fathers back in the house.
In the house. Back in the house.
That sounds like a Disney Channel show. Black Daddy's back in the house.
I really can't handle that because again, it's like they're like over 1.5 million fathers in jail, prison, and parole right now, right? And it's just like, so what was your plan, guys? Like, what were you gonna do exactly? And it's like you're somehow simultaneously like mad that black fathers aren't in the home, and also like, well, we got to get these guys out of here, got to send them to prison because like, how else are we gonna make money? Like my portfolio, I can't diversify. That's woke. So, yeah, I'm just like you're really wanting to have it both ways here, and that is that's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
I think. But yeah, like
Sounds
everything
about right.
everything that he said, everything that he just sort of like listed there, I'm just like, okay, but these systems, it's like, first of all, you've completely deregulated the economy. Like we're like 40 years post Reagan at this point. Like, what, you want more people dying because like trains derail and blow up? Like, what, how much more do you want to deregulate? You just like, let's get rid of stoplights because it's harming the economy.
My Tesla sits up here and tells me when to stop, buddy. I don't need you to tell me when to stop. The government's controlling me.
Yeah, but it's everything, and like everything is like oppression to them, right? And it's like when you're talking about people for whom like the argument was literally making people wear seatbelts in their cars.
If you scheme racism,
it exists. If you treat everyone the same, it disappears. Oh, wow. Yeah, buddy, Paul, no one ever thought of that. Can't believe that you broke this one for us, but thanks.
Stealing from one person to give to another is the greatest form of inequality. Reparations is theft. All right, this is my idea for reparations. Tell me what yours is, and this is what we'll cap off the show with. I want reparations to be just how they do it somewhat within the Native American community. I want the school for every black child to be paid for. I want it to be a stipend for every black child to go to whatever school or neighborhood they need to be in, and for there to be a loan for every black child that decides to either pick up a trade or go to college, that they are automatically given a loan to start their first business or to help them fund into getting their first house. And be like, hey, none of this costs you shit. You're going to get your taxes back in this, like, within the school system and everything else. Like, here you go. If you so afraid that we're going to take this money and go spend it on drugs or do some wild ass shit and everything else, you took our past, protect our future. Give the money to these kids and sit up here and make sure they're set up. Yeah. And the best part about it would be if, like, every single one of your white neighborhoods, right next to it, make a black neighborhood. Right next to that motherfucker. And be like, hey, we sit up here and supported these loans and got these housings and everything else, because you know how black people do. If I'm living over here, Big Mama got to get a house, and I guess we devalued the neighborhood, so all your nice homes, Big Mama got to get a new one. Yeah, that's what I would love. I think that would work. What's your reparations plan?
Well, I mean, my plan, like, I guess there's two. There's my dream plan is we look at every single state that excluded black folks from voting. However many years we were excluded from voting in that state. So I think like Alabama, it's like, I don't know, 100 and some odd years, right? It's like you can knock off 10 for Reconstruction. That doesn't even count, but I'll give it to you.
Okay.
Then I want Alabama gets 2 extra black senators that only black people can vote on for 118 years or however long the fuck it was that they were putting people in jail and shooting them in the face for trying to vote.
Yo.
And then same number of time, however many representatives there are, however many state representatives Alabama has, like,
you
same
literally
thing.
want to make the black delegation.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah.
No, like literally
Fuck
all of it.
yeah.
So it's like however long you were being abusive, right? And like Utah has the same sort of shit with like indigenous people. Like they weren't letting people vote until like the fucking 70s or something. Like go through. It's like Utah gets 2 extra senators and they have to be indigenous people and white people can't vote. Not on those 2. Like, I'm sure they'll campaign and try to do all kinds. They'll pull shenanigans, right? Because this is how white people do it.
They're going to try to put in their They're like, hey, let's give you some money.
Yep. Yeah, that is what they're going to do. But white people can't vote in these elections. And it's timed. It's capped, right? So it's not going to be forever. Those seats will evaporate after you've done your time, after your state's done your time for being abusive and exclusive and doing terrorism, etc. so Florida, what have you, Florida gets 2 extra black senators, gets 2 extra Native senators. Like,
two extra Colombian senators. For real. One of them, whoever that child was back in the day that came across on the boat.
Yeah. Yep.
He automatically gets for life. He gets to be a representative for Florida. Like, y'all motherfuckers kicked me out. Guess who's back? Gang, gang.
Oh yeah, so that's my dream. That's what I would like. I'm also really okay with like basically child tax credit essentially. So it's like black folks shouldn't have to fucking pay taxes. Like we paid taxes, like never mind even slavery. Like we paid taxes for 100 years and didn't get to use any of those goddamn services.
Dude, they took our fucking money from us. Like you just said it. They took our fucking money from us. What was it? No taxation without representation.
Yeah. So again, I'm like, give us back our taxes for however long Jim Crow was, however long you were being ridiculous and
giving us higher loan rates for all those fucking years.
Exactly. And then it's like, it can time out. It's not injustice if it's not going past the time that you were being an ass.
See, I'm gonna say this. Whenever someone does an action, they say equal and opposite reaction. I want it times by 2.
That's fair. Cause interest. Yeah. Interest.
Give me it times by 2.
That's fair.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a fantastic Blackly Black episode of Your Morning Drip. Yeah, your mayonnaise. I'm gonna even though you probably didn't invent it. Thank you, Tori, for being on the show. It was really great to have you. Let people know where they can find you, what you're doing, where you're at, because we didn't even really. Let me.
All my shenanigans.
So
Jesus pointed out that I don't have my socials on my website, so maybe I need to fix that. So I'll do that. Oh, that's weird. See, because I haven't been on Twitter or I haven't been on Facebook in since Trump got elected, frankly. I log in like twice a year to block somebody.
Yeah.
So ToriGlass.com is my website. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at ToriGlass, as well as Pay the Rent Club, which is what's on there right now.
Tell us what Pay the Rent Club is about real quick.
Well, okay, so like I grew up really, really poor, and so I basically started the White Homework podcast. Like my intention was to essentially give the idea is we're gonna pay the rent for like a black family or a Native family, or it's like for a year, right? Because I remember as a kid, like just the difference that like as a child, like $1,000 would have made in my just in terms of like my emotional well-being of like not having to worry about like how my parents were going to pay for rent and food at the same time. Just like that being my lived experience, I was like, I just, I want people to like throw in like the cost of a cup of coffee every month to like help a black family pay rent so that they can get caught up on bills and like send kiddo to therapy and like whatever it is that you feel like you got to do. Like there's no, it is a stipend, but there's no strings attached. It's just cash. Like pay your rent, do your things, take care of yourself, just so you get a little breathing room. So that's why I started Pay the Rent Club. That
is dope. How many families have you done thus far?
Let me see here. This started summer of 2020. So I guess 4 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've been able to like pay their rent for the full year. See, that's why we like bringing on people like yourself on the show, because the work that you do doesn't necessarily need to be, hey, I led a 1 million man march,
right,
or I did this crazy campaign with this brand or whatever else. It's as simple as like, yo, people in my community needed help. I helped. People wanted more of an education on this, which I think is a huge feat in itself of you being like, yo, y'all want to do the homework? Y'all want to do the work? Here it is.
Yeah.
Here it is. And you can take it how you see it. You want to sit up here and dig in your pockets. You don't have to give it to one of these torn situations with protest leaders that maybe weren't using the funds the correct way.
Right, yeah.
You can
just give it to a family.
Give it to a family.
Help them pay their rent. So, yeah.
Amazing. Is there anything else on here you want us to share before we vamoose into the ether?
So yeah, I mean, if you go onto my website, you can get on my email list, and then in a couple weeks when the workbook comes out, you get a link, maybe a discount code. I don't know. We'll see.
No, for only. They don't need a discount code. White people get enough discounts.
Yeah, for sure. No, I don't know. I think I'm gonna like give a discount code to the people who are on the Patreon because they're already like giving money. But yeah, I think otherwise, yeah, there'll be a little email blast that comes out with a link, and you can forward it to all your friends and homies and your racist Uncle Ron, all the guys. Yeah.
Aren't in-laws the funnest? I'm not going to say anything else than that.
I don't have any anymore. Bless it.
Oh, dang. Word. I feels you. All right, word. Well, thank you for coming on. It's been another fantastic episode of Your Morning Drip. Make sure to check us out at yourmorningdrip.com. If you can like and subscribe, hit that notification bell, become a part of the Drip Nation. Help support the show by going and picking up a piece of merch or getting a print or something online. Greatly appreciate it. Tori, you're fantastic. I can't wait to chop it up more with you. We are out of here. Peace.